All right. Hi, everybody. I'm John Lux. I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. After our summer break, welcome back to Film Florida Friday. Film Florida Fridays are interactive conversations about current topics, initiatives, and relationship building in Florida's film, television, commercial, and digital media production industry. Today, we're talking about the current industry strikes. We'll learn about the issues SAG-AFTRA and WGA have with the AMPTP, the outlook for the near future, and more. As a reminder, in a moment, we're going to meet today's guests. They'll introduce themselves. I'll ask some questions to get things going. During that time, we're going to ask that everybody keep their microphones on mute to avoid background noise. After we've gotten through initial questions, we'll open it up to the audience for questions and conversations. At that time, please use the hand raising function so we can call on you. We want this to be conversational and interactive, but we also don't want everybody talking at the same time. We're going to ask everybody to keep their questions and comments brief in the interest of time and out of fairness to others that want the opportunity. Film Florida Fridays, as you know, are free, but we hope you'll consider donating $20.23 for our 2023 fundraising campaign. That donation link will be posted in the chat box throughout the discussion. You can always find that on our website as well. So with that, I want to introduce our guests. Let's start with Michael Viera from SAG-AFTRA. Michael, go ahead.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me. My name is Michael Viera. I'm the Executive Director of SAG-AFTRA. I am Miami born and raised, and I became the Executive Director of the local about 2 years ago, and I really love the organization that I work for. I love all the members. It's been a very interesting 2 years, and as you all know, we're in the middle of the strike, but we're fighting for the greater good of everyone, not just our members.
Excellent. Thanks, Michael. Adam, you go next.
Hey, my name is Adam Vernier. I'm an actor. I live in Orlando, Florida. I spent many years out in Los Angeles, but decided to move to Florida a long time ago, 2003, to be a big fish in a small pond in the film industry when Florida was the place, Hollywood East, and it really was back then. So I've seen the changes from that to what we are now with the tumbleweeds that we see in Florida for film production. And I'm excited to talk about it. I've got tons and tons of film, TV, commercial credits. I work a lot, and I work hard to work a lot. So happy to be here. And thank you so much, John and Film Florida, for having me.
Absolutely. Sharon, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sharon Cobb, Sharon Y. Cobb, if you're looking on IMDb, and I'm a Florida girl. And I'm lucky to have lived in and survived LA for 8 years. 8 years. And that's how I got everything set up with my, like those people agents, and producers and stuff like that, and pitches and blah, blah, blah. And so I joined WGA, Writers Guild West, matter of fact, in 1999 when a partner, Carolyn McDonald, who was running Danny Glover's company, we pitched something to Fox and got the assignment. And that meant we were invited to join the WGA. So that was my first WGA experience. And I've had several features produced. You just have to, I don't want to bore you with the list. We've got a new one, though, that's coming out that's kind of exciting called The Man in the White Van. And there's all kinds of what do you call that? Press breaks, I think is what they call it. I don't know, about that. And so then I have a couple of other thrillers waiting for the strike to end. They're all kind of like set up, ready to go. I can't sign papers. I can't take money. So no, I won't.
Yeah, good. All right. So Sharon, let's stick with you. Obviously, we're here to talk about the current strikes with WGA as well as SAG-AFTRA. So obviously, you're going to focus on the WGA side. Let's start with how we got here. Can you give us a little background on the current contract? When was it signed? How long was it in effect? And discuss some of the main goals for what the WGA is looking to improve upon.
Right. So what we call minimums, the contracts cycle in and out it's been about every 3 years in the last, 20. And the 2020 cycle was the last one that we had. That's our current minimums contract. And there were things that needed to be addressed, and this is always the case with the strikes. Anytime there's a strike or a negotiation, there's something new that pops up. Like 1 year it had, let me look, I wrote it down. One year it had to do mostly about coverage of new media, and that was in 2007. So in 2007, there was a whole thing about new media that we had not addressed in the contracts. And a lot of times it has to do with new things happening in the whole industry, like new media, or in this case, with this strike, AI. That's the new kind of thing that's happening with that. And that, I think, if Michael, if that's right, there's a couple of things about AI with SAG-AFTRA as well. So we're, and some of the what we like to call the companies, they're the struck companies. It's AMPTP, like P meaning producers, but it's not really producers, it's companies. It's the signatory companies we're striking against. And so there are, some demands, and then some, the companies go like, no, and sometimes they don't even come back with any kind of response at all, no response. But we're asking for a 5 to 6% increase in minimums. And right now there are a lot of writers, including TV writers, that are writing for minimums. And it's some of the numbers I've been seeing through this whole strike negotiations are very surprising to me, especially for the TV writers. I write features, so I know about TV a little bit, but the streaming features with a budget of 12 million or more get theatrical terms in the contracts, which before they had not. We get I like this one. We get a second step. That means a guaranteed second step, meaning if you guys hire me to write a script for you and I write one draft, then that's it. And unless your personal contract, not the WGA contract, your personal contract specifies there's a second step. Most of mine do, but a lot of contracts, personal contracts, do not do that. So this would be guaranteeing a second step, a rewrite, in other words. And here's a big one. Feature writers would get weekly pay. Now, that's never been done before. It's always that feature writers, we have to really bank enough money on either the upfront money, commencement of the script, and then we have to wait for, usually the contracts are about 3 months, 3 months, and then we hope, get the rest of the money. And so now the idea is to have weekly pay, which I love that. I'm not sure that's going to be something that happens. Yeah. There needs to be all this whole thing about streaming is, there's all kinds of issues about streaming. Also, for the episodic TV people, one of the big issues has to do with the number of writers that are in what's called in the room, the people who write the series. And the companies have really liked the idea of using a smaller number of writers as possible, and so that's one of the things the TV writers are doing. The other big giant thing, like I said, is AI. That's going to be really interesting to see how that works out, because the WGA is saying that the WGA wants to be able to regulate any use of AI in our projects, in our Writers Guild projects, and that AI cannot write or rewrite literary material, our literary material, and AI cannot be used as source material. So these are some gigantic issues, and especially the AI is not being, the companies are not answering. No.
Well, Adam, let me jump down to you. Kind of similar question as we had for Sharon. Like the current contract, when did that come into play, and what are some of the big sticking points for you guys right now?
Well, we are very similar to Sharon in the sense that you can trace the technology and see where the strikes have come. When it was just television and commercials and everything. The minute that, say, VCRs came out, the movies got crazy, and the TV, we're not going to make any money. The minimums that we were making for the residuals for it were non-existent at the time, and so we had to fight to get those. And then, when cable came, everyone thought, oh my gosh, cable's going to ruin and we were getting $1,000 buyout for the life of the cable commercial or whatever, or the TV show for that. And then, I think we had a strike on that. It was 80. But we have had to strike for the technology. Well, the technology that's here now, and I'm sure Michael's going to speak more to it now, we don't have anything in place for it. Much like Sharon can attest for, any television writer, if you do Chicago Fire, I'll use that example. I just did a Chicago Fire. They do 22 episodes a season, 2 seasons a year, 44 episodes a year. And that's the way it used to be. So as an actor, you could get on a show in September, October, and then your residuals through the Christmas break and into January would help you live through that. And you would get that. And then you would go and get another show. And then summers, you would live off the residuals. Well, then you have shows like Outer Banks, another show that I did, that does 10 episodes a year, and that's it. And I mean, the writers can't live on it, the actors can't live on it, and the fact that it's a streaming show, we don't really have anything in place for that internet cable, whether it's Friends that was on NBC but now goes to the internet cable, or whether it's another show that is developed strictly for the internet. We don't have any minimums. We do, but they're nothing. They're pennies to the dollar compared to network and even cable at this point. So the technology is really one of the things too. There's some other onset and industry things that I can talk about later as we get into the changes. But that's primarily, and the AI, of course, is a huge thing. Nobody's going to budge on AI. We're just not. That's one of the big lines in the sand for everybody. Who would agree to that in any industry, in any company? Yes, you have the right to everything that I am, and I don't need any money for it forever. It's not going to happen. So we're not sure if it's going to go that far or not, but being
Adam, may I ask a question about AI? Did you see yesterday Anne Hathaway and a few other actors are engaging this company to represent themselves for AI projects?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, check that out.
Like a new agency that would cover AI for actors? I've not heard that yet.
Yeah.
It's smart. It's like the agency there's an agency out there that covers Elvis and Marilyn and all those, and they do.
That's the same. Yeah, exactly.
Probably the same people. Yeah, very innovative, but we'll see what happens with that.
Well, Adam, I wanted to ask you about, residuals real quick.
Sure.
People post on Facebook, a residual check for 2 cents. I actually saw somebody post one recently for $0.00. Like, give us some context to what that is. It's a funny social media post, but this is real life here we're talking about. So give us context. When somebody posts that check for 2 cents, what are they getting that for?
So normally, they've already made a lot of money off of it, because I get it's I feel like I'm name dropping on shows, but it gives the example. So I have X-Files that I did in '99, and that X-Files check, I still get $100, $200 checks, and I was on for one episode. Imagine what everyone else, but it's still high in demand. But then I also did JAG, and I get checks for 2 cents, 1 cent. And it's a sliding scale too. So, it came up, and then every time they run it or every time they buy it, you get a certain amount for pay TV, a certain amount for foreign, which foreign is just I don't know why people say, oh yeah, it's the overseas money you get. Cause I get a check that has pages and pages of my things, and the whole check is like $20. Like, what the heck? So it's a sliding scale. So it's kind of, it does serve the purpose to show you a 0.00, but they've already made the money on it. And commercials are usually where you get the 0.00, because they've paid for the session fee, and they paid like the 13-week cycle, and it goes up against the usage fees. So it happens, it's real, but it's also, kind of, I don't know, it's to prove a point more than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm not getting zeros for my streaming. That's not the way it works. It's sliding. We will eventually, probably, because of time, but
yeah. And now, Michael, yes, thank you very much for that. Michael, let's talk about, just so people understand, all of SAG-AFTRA is not on strike right now. So what falls under the current SAG-AFTRA strike?
Correct. So what's on strike currently is TV theatrical. So SAG-AFTRA covers a wide swath of the entertainment industry in terms of performers. We have broadcasters, we have singers, we have dancers, we have actors. We cover a very, very, very intricate array of people. So what's on strike right now is just TV theatrical, and it's projects that are assigned to the AMPTP. So to put it in a very simple way, it's like the big budget projects, basically, that are not getting done. So it's like, the AMPTP consists of Apple TV, Amazon, Disney, your Warner Brothers, your Sony. So it's like the really big projects. So people could still do certain things, like, we have a netcode contract, which is, that covers, productions that are on daily. So for instance, like, I know the Drew Barrymore show right now is in the press and she's signed to netcode under us. I know the WGA has a different stance on that. But, you have also, Mark and Kelly, you have The View, you have The Talk. So all those shows, they're still going on because they're signed to a different contract. We still have commercials that are going on. Commercials is not struck work, so that's also another avenue that actors could take in order to, make some money. Which is good, because we do want people to make money. We want everyone to be able to work during this time. So it's not that all work is struck. We're not shut down. It's just that we don't have TV theatrical work going on now because of the strike. And even then, we do have the interim agreement, which I know we'll talk more about later, which is something in our arsenal that we're using to make the point that our requests to the AMPTP are not unreasonable or unrealistic, but rather a viable avenue to move forward.
Excellent. Okay. Now, I also want to ask, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, so correct me, but we saw things at the beginning where people could share more about interim agreements, or like they could fall under an interim agreement to do a project. What is that? And give me the right terminology so people understand it.
You're right. It's interim agreement, so you have the right terminology. We are offering interim agreements to the producers out there. We have a really big avalanche of people who want to sign the interim agreement because productions, they really want to move forward. The interim agreement, we're using a vetting system where we want to make sure that the producers who are applying for the interim agreement are not affiliated with the AMPTP in any way. So it has taken us a little bit more time to get those approved. I think I checked yesterday. We have if you go to SAG-AFTRA-strike.org, I checked the website yesterday and they update it kind of like every day to see what projects are actually being approved for this interim agreement. And we have 14 pages of projects that have been approved. So it's hundreds of projects that are currently, in production that are being approved to work, which under any other circumstance in any other strike, they wouldn't be working at all. So we have provided an avenue for people to have work. It's just that you have to meet certain requirements that are congruent with the offer that we made the AMPTP, that we wanted them to come to the table. So people are coming in to the table to work with us, just not the AMPTP for their own reasons.
That makes sense. Now, this is kind of for all of you. So let's start with you, Sharon. This is, a dual strike going on. And so it's the first one, I believe, since the 60s that we had WGA and SAG-AFTRA at the same time. So let's fast forward real quick and assume this gets taken care of. We won't get into the win right now, but what is the trickle down for the industry over the next 12 to 36 months once these things do get wrapped up? What happens, and does the work get made up, or is it just kind of we've lost what we've lost here, or how do you see that working? Sharon, you go first.
I think it depends on what AMPTP comes up with on all of the negotiations. I think okay, let me give you an example. 1988, we had a strike. The Writers Guild had a strike, and that strike created, let me see how long that was, 22 weeks. And that strike created, we think, the idea is it created the first $1 million spec market, meaning that the writers are doing what I'm doing right now, writing something on spec, which I don't normally do. But if I can't talk to my producers or anybody, and I can't write for assignments, then I got to do something. I got to get out of bed for some reason. And so I'm writing a new spec script with my partner who wrote Man in the White Van. We just finished that new spec script. We were hoping to get it finished before the strike ended, and we did. So I'm really happy about that. Yeah. So how the actual fallout will be, I don't know. It really depends on what I mean. Okay, so let me say this about the whole thing. I am so happy to see SAG-AFTRA join, or not join, but have their own strike, because that gave a lot of, to me, it gave a lot of power to the strike for the Writers Guild, because I think there are a lot of producers out there going like, oh, this AI thing, let me see, can it write a script for me? Blah, blah, blah. Yes, it can. I mean, I've seen some of these things and they're just,
yeah, South Park had a great episode about that. South Park
very interesting. Oh my God.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to create a huge appetite for new projects, and it really depends on how all of the strike negotiations, proposals, and acceptances, and all that stuff, all that comes out.
Adam, how about you?
Yeah, but we are definitely solid, but there are some things that are in our wish list, I guess I should say, that might just not happen. This gives me an opportunity to tell you about the kind of the environment that we actors are working under, especially if you're not in LA or New York, but this carries over, is we have a very much just be happy you get anything attitude towards the actors. The lowest man on the totem pole. It used to be just, I feel like the old man. It used to be, but it used to be when you booked a job, all you had to worry about was your job. But now they have, modified local hires and local hires. So, and to just in case people don't know what that is, your modified local, you'll get a certain amount, like $300 for your travel, but you're in charge of your travel. So pay planes, get canceled or whatever, you're picking up the charges that come with that. And then modify, and they pay for your hotel, but nothing else, outside of that. So if you wanted to do things in the city when your days are off, you couldn't, have a car. That's minute, but the local hire now is the big thing. So if I want to do a job in Atlanta, I to be competitive and to get the job, and I have to say that I'll work as a local in Atlanta. And so then I'm in charge of getting myself up there on my dime. I'm in charge of getting my hotel, everything. And you lose money doing that on, co-star parts and stuff. Guest star, you still make money, but it's close, and that attitude of just be lucky you get anything. That's one of the things that we're fighting to try to get rid of, because we're all collaborative. We say we're collaborative, but we're not being collaborative when we're getting a tiny bit of the collaborative profits, and everything's just trickling down, and then just be happy you get anything. We're not even going to see you because you don't live in the city. And it's a sad place, but that's what we're trying to change. And one other thing on that is self-taping. A lot of people think that self-taping is new because of COVID and everything. I booked shows in 2005, 2007 out of Orlando, for Charlotte, for New Orleans, strictly from a tape. They've been doing it forever. In the 70s, they used to have the big camera. I remember because I was a child attempter for The Shining, and I remember the big camera in the audition room. So I mean, they've always been taping it, so that's not new. But the self-taping in general, like you get an audition on a Friday and it's due on Monday. It's in our wish list that we get paid for that, because it's a weekend rate, and not everybody's behind it. And there's also a demand that we have to have an in-person rather than a self-tape, and not everyone's behind that either. So there's some things in there that probably aren't going to happen, but it might be holding us back a little bit as well.
Michael, how about you? What's the outlook once this thing does get squared away?
I think it's going to change. A deal is going to happen. I think it's a matter of when, not if. A deal is going to happen. I think, AI is at the forefront of that. I think residuals, is going to be look very different. I think there's been such an uproar, just like, Adam was saying, you get checks for, 8 cents or, $1. I think that's really highlighted the way that people feel. I think transparency of the streamers is probably going to change, because right now that's a really big issue. I mean, Netflix and Apple Plus and Amazon, all these streamers, they are tech companies masquerading as studios. And I think there's an incongruency with having these tech companies be in bed with the other AMPTP studios who have a more traditional approach to negotiating with us. Because I think the tech companies see it differently, as they don't look at it as it's kind of poetic in a way. They don't look at it as like a people problem. It's more like a technology problem, So I think they don't see it as like a labor issue. They're actually employing people. It's technology, it's just, technology is numbers and all these things, and they're not looking at the human issues, which I think is a problem, because they approach it in a different way than the traditional studios do. So I think in terms of like residuals, we've been asking for a lot of transparency in numbers, and just like what viewing hours are, and also there's different metrics for that. So we had proposed using like a third party, disinterested company to kind of track all those things. And I think, there's some conversation about whether that's fair, like what's the most fair way of doing it. And we approached it that way because the streamers just don't want to give up their raw numbers. They don't want to give up their data, because then once everything is public, their shareholders and their board of directors and everyone, it's kind of like, the Wizard of Oz, Oz peeks behind the curtain, and that's it. It's gone. So the smoke and mirrors is over. And I think they're very reticent to do that. But again, like we had Nielsen track, TV ratings, so this isn't something that's unprecedented. It's just that it's tech, and they're the new kid at the table, and tech is the one that has the dollars, to be honest. I mean, because they have all these inflated numbers and they get funding, and so it's kind of changed. It's a paradigm shift in the way the industry has been working. And our contracts go for like 3 years at a time. So, things have been moving so rapidly, and we're kind of playing catch up. And especially it's been a particularly crazy last 3 years. I feel like it's, for better or worse. I mean, we've had like the crazy like 1-2 punch of like having, someone like Trump as our president. We've had COVID, come in. It's kind of like emboldened people a lot. And I think that's why we know a lot of people feel comfortable striking, because I think it's just kind of changed the sociological fabric of the way that people are thinking. Now, like right now, I just saw the news today, the people in the car sector are also striking. So it's not just, our industry that are striking. I just think people have kind of been fed up with the way things have been going. And I think it's kind of reached a fever pitch, and like the meniscus is boiling, and it's boiling over now. So I think that's why this is where we're at.
Can I add to that, the kind of backtracking, but the residuals, when we went on strike in 2000 for the commercial contract, I was out there, one in Los Angeles at the time. And one of the things that we were fighting for was a watermark on the commercials, just like music has, so that, the artist can get, it boils down to a penny a time a song plays, but that adds up. But we wanted a watermark because we wanted to know, obviously where, when our commercials are running. We didn't get that. We struck. That was one of the main things we wanted. We didn't get it. We still don't have a watermark. We're still trusting the producers to tell us where they run and how it runs. And I had one commercial that somebody saw in South Korea. What are the chances I would know anyone in South Korea? And we had to fight for it, and we did. We ended up winning. It was Duncan Crabtree Island when he was just our attorney for SAG. But we still don't have the watermark, but we still went in. So the things that we really want, we might not get, but of course, what's the alternative? We were there for everyone during the pandemic. It was us that they watched, and us that the writers and the actors that they enjoyed. So I know that we'll prevail. Just I don't know what we'll get out of it.
Right. I want to take a brief pause right here. Sandy, you've had your hand up for a little bit, so go ahead and take yourself off of mute. I'm going to highlight you and bring you down.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. I have a question for Michael.
Oh, no.
All
right. Be nice, Sandy. It's early.
So when it comes to the interim agreements, right, are they the same terms as what's being, what you're asking for currently? So that it's the same. Are there any, are they the same, or is it each one different in regards to, specifically for the production, besides those general, negotiating terms that are being negotiated currently? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it's the same. It's like basically like our gross terms. It's basically like the terms that we offered to the AMPTP in First Blush, and so we're offering that to everyone. And so we're using that as a tool so that the AMPTP knows that people are amenable to it, and no one's going, no one's dying, no one's bankrupt. Like we have viable terms that are okay to work under, and people are actually doing it, and they're producing their films on it, and everything is okay. What we're asking for under these agreements is not unheard of or unreasonable or unrealistic. They're viable terms that actually do, turn out a product, that it doesn't bankrupt the production. And we're using that just to say, hey, AMPTP, look, we have 14 pages of productions that are willing to do it with us, they're willing to work with us, but you're not. Why? And it kind of makes them look bad because they're much bigger fish in the sea. And if these independent productions are willing to do it, why aren't they?
Right. And the second question, thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. Second question is, the rumor has it that the productions, or producers, apart from AMPTP, are now negotiating separately and kind of breaking away from the studios. Does anybody know the answer to that, if that's happening?
There's an agreement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a rumor, but I was just curious because that would change the whole trajectory of the entire, which it's probably going to anyhow. The entire.
Well, we have an agreement now of AMC, The Walking Dead, and everything like that. Which I mean, honestly, they have not really given us the genesis for that agreement. I know it happened. And everyone happy because I know people really love Interviews with Vampires, so that will be getting a second season. I know there are talks happening, and if you look at Deadline and Hollywood Reporter and all those things, I know they keep reporting that there are individual companies coming to the table and having backdoor, unofficial conversations. Because again, I think there's a fracture between the tech companies and the studios. And I think this is a battle of attrition. So I think it's kind of like divide and conquer. And I think that's we're at that stage now, which is like divide and conquer. I think people are kind of getting desperate. So.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I too have heard about
Adam.
productions happening. Oh, productions happening in Europe. And like you said, I think you said it best when you said it's rumors. There are some things that are, but there are also Canada is another place. But I forgot one very, very important thing, and I know this is off topic a little bit, but it's residuals thing. This is something that I would only know because it's affecting me personally, but I know it's a huge thing that ABC has pretty much all but stopped paying residuals completely. So I did an episode of the Wonder Years, the new one, in 2021. And I got paid for that episode, and it is rerun on network 3 times that I've counted, and it's on Hulu and all this stuff. But I'm not the only one. Every actor I know that has co-starred or guest starred on that show has not gotten a residual. And so if they just let it go and go and go and go, then they come and they negotiate, and it's pennies to the dollar that, 30 cents for every dollar they owe us, and, you're happy to get anything. But that's a huge issue that I haven't heard anyone speaking about. And I'm going to do my part to get it out there that, you pay us. We're especially on a strike, but it's kind of like they've got the food and they're like, no, you really need this, don't you? You really want this, don't you? And it's a very it's a not fair game to people that have lives. That's all of us.
So Adam, what does SAG say about that? Because like WGA, we have the same thing with residuals, except if the companies don't pay the residuals when they get audited all the time, and then they get their penalty is so large for not paying, then they have to pay.
See, the penalty for us is not that large, and so it's nothing. But I do have a claim. I've got a claim number. It took me 6 months to get a claim number. SAG had to do a lot of cuts and Michael can attest to this, a lot of cuts in their departments during COVID, obviously. That's your story, yes. So what's being done? I don't know. It's we're just
okay.
I went and got a side gig. That's what we have to do.
Raise the penalties.
Yes, that's it. Well, for starters, yeah, that's a great thing. Or just pay us, Anyway.
Okay, so we have a ton of questions in the chat, and I can't keep up with them. So I'm going to try and hit some of them, but please, by all means, raise your hand if I haven't gotten to it, because I want to make sure that people in the audience have their questions asked. So, but let me just jump to one that I stopped in my scroll. From Kevin. It says, interested in panel's thoughts on indie micro budget projects under 20K. It says auto approved through SAG-AFTRA or short project agreements of 50,000 that are being allowed during strike. Have any of you worked on any of those, been involved? And Michael, do you know how many are being done during the strike in the Southeast Florida, Georgia region? Adam, you started shaking your head. And so
yes.
Will you respond first? And then Michael, let's jump over to you.
So I operate a taping studio in Orlando that tapes actors. So I see pretty much anything that's out there in the Southeast that people need to audition for, they come here and see. And I have seen these micro budgets auditions come in that are okay with SAG. I've got outside a list of the big thing that SAG gave us that says, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. And I always, even if they think they can do it, reading that, I encourage them to call SAG and make sure they can do it. But we have seen these productions coming in, and the talent that they're getting for these is everyone wants to work. That's all we want to do is we want to work. So it's a lot more competitive, but you're getting great talent. I would say do those. This is a huge opportunity to do those now, and people are craving new content, and they're craving anything. So it's a great thing. So yes, if you're asking if you should do them, absolutely, and yes, people are doing them. I've seen them.
Michael.
Yes, to answer that question, we sign about like 2 to 5 a week. Of those contracts, and I call these contracts like our gateway union contracts because they're contracts that are meant to kind of introduce people to doing union work. These projects would normally be non-union, and we give people a pathway to going union. So we work with people. There's deferred compensation under them. There's lower rates. We really, and especially it's what doesn't struck work here locally is student film, spas, and then the micro budget. So those are contracts that would normally maybe be non-union, and so we want to give people an introduction to how to work with us. Like how to actually fill out the application, like what is the interaction with our office, how sets are supposed to be run. And so, and during this time, like what Adam said, it's provided, work for people that are not working right now. But also these contracts are important because it kind of creates, every filmmaker, goes to film school for the most part, and this is their first introduction to working with SAG-AFTRA. So then as their career grows, they know how to work with us already, and they'll maybe be predisposed to go union as opposed to going non-union because their experience working on the student film or their micro budget was good. And then, it's part of my job personally here. I do a lot of talking with students and schools, and it's about getting rid of the stigma of going union. Just because I think if you get them when they're young, you kind of teach them how to go union later. It's kind of hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but like these puppies, you gotta get them. They're like, hey, they're so happy to go union later because they realize it wasn't as bad or as scary as it is. And then during the strike, it's been, work for people. So it's been very helpful that way.
Yeah. Okay. So one quick housekeeping thing. I don't know if anybody is getting texts or emails. I know I am. But apparently we have a 100 capacity limit on our Zoom account, and we have reached that. So if you are here, please don't drop out because you won't be able to get back in because people are still trying to join the meeting.
Yeah, we broke
yeah, we broke our Zoom subscription.
No.
But honestly, if you're really bored and you're not that interested, go ahead and drop out, let somebody else come in. And if you're getting emails and texts, just remind everybody that the video is going to be posted on our social media pages next week, so everybody will be able to see the recording in the discussion of this. So I'm really sorry, I didn't know we had 100 member capacity. We've never hit that, so lesson learned. So okay, so let me go. I'm going to go to one of the yeah. Apparently people are interested in this topic. I'm going to go to one other question in the chat, and then Lori, I'm going to bring you down because you've had your hand raised. So Earl wants to know, how do interim agreements affect the WGA? How are writers able to work on these rewrites, et cetera, during production? Sharon, you're shaking your head. Go for it.
No writing. It's
okay.
Zero writing. Can't do any of it. No, none of it. As of May the 2nd, that was it. I mean, nothing. And we're not supposed to be talking to producers. We're not supposed to be attending film festivals. I've got a film festival coming up with Man in the White Van. It's Newport Beach, and I can't go. I mean, I'm not complaining. This is really important stuff to everybody. And again, I'm so glad that SAG-AFTRA joined in or added their strike onto ours. So no, we can't work. Matter of fact, okay, so now this is a question I got yesterday from a friend in LA. Can non-WGA writers write for any of the companies or take assignments? And now, yes, you can, but don't. I mean, if you think you're going to join WGA after that, you won't. That's not going to happen. So if you're interested in being a union member, then don't take work from the companies. Right now during strike, it's called scab. You'd be a scrap. I mean, that's what WGA is telling me. Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. All right, Lori, if you want to turn your camera on, I can spotlight you. Otherwise, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
I'm just going to talk. So if people are signing interim agreements, what's the incentive for settling the strike?
Exactly.
It's sort of, like it doesn't make sense. I mean, I get it, but it seems counterproductive. And also, I think I missed where you guys mentioned how this affects commercials, because I can't tell you how many times I've had actors sign releases that say in perpetuity, and I'm not in the event that any future universes are discovered. I mean, I'll never forget seeing that. I was like, are you kidding me?
Legal terms of art. Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, it's like, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've had people sign releases like that. And so that means we could take that old footage, scan it in, and use it on Mars, and not pay them another dime.
Exactly.
I can take it. So in the commercial world, Michael did cover it, but two completely different contracts. So we can do union commercials as long as that does cover that. As for interim agreements, the union, I'm not speaking on behalf of the union, but it seems to be a little bit divided for the same reason you say. But one side does say, well, my wife is on this side, says, why are you even watching Netflix? Why are you even watching TV? Why are you going to the movies? Why are you doing? We can't bite the hand that feeds us that much. So,
right.
So the interim agreements mean, I honestly, you didn't ask my opinion, so I won't give it to you, but some people are
No,
doing that,
give me
some
your
people aren't.
opinion. I love opinions.
I'm dying to work. I mean, there's a hole in me right now,
I
and I'm dying
understand
to
that.
work. So
I
if it's an interim
understand.
agreement and the union says that I can do it, I can't see that I would turn it down. I can't. I mean, we're, you know, and I'm just one person. I know a lot of people are dying to work right now. So I think if a legal, real interim agreement came my way, I would probably do it. But I completely understand and respect people that would not do that, you know, and I don't know. We do have to stay strong. If the union said, you know what, we're not doing interim agreements anymore, then okay. I definitely am a good soldier on that front.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm really
And I'll
surprised
piggyback
it's not affecting commercials because
Not
that
at
was
all.
my bread and butter when I was in production, and those are bread and butter actors. Those aren't
Yes.
the Clooney's, and my father submitted footage of me as a kid, and I made like $4,000 in residuals. It was
Yep.
like amazing. So power to you guys. My dad was IBEW, so I wish
Yeah.
you all the best. This saddens me greatly because I was watching something economic show, and they were saying how it's just a small percentage of the workforce, but it's a trickle down. What about the movie theaters that are just,
Oh yeah.
you want to call it a comeback? It's sad, and now what are they going it's not just the workforce, it's everything else. All right, I've blabbled on long enough.
Thank you very much, Lori.
Yeah,
I
thank
hate
For
something.
for Adam or Michael, again, correct me because I might not have my stuff accurate. We talked about how commercials are not part of it, but the commercial contract is coming up. Is that right? Or did
No,
I
it
hear
just
that?
got renewed last year. It got renewed last year, so we have another 3 years for that. Thank
Okay.
God. Please don't tell me that, because if I just
Okay. So
I would just jump off the Zoom and jump off my balcony. It would be like a dual jump. Bam, bam. I would. No, commercial is
Okay.
good for us. So 2025, I believe.
The IA contract is coming up next year, John.
That's
Yeah.
what okay, right. Okay, that's right. That's right. I can't keep them all straight. There's so much going on these days. All right, Earl, I'm gonna bring you down if you want to turn your camera on, or you can just unmute yourself and talk.
No, you don't need to see me. You've seen enough. Anyway,
that Ray Romano?
like I don't I don't need to tell people that are on this Zoom. It's not only actors and it's not only writers. It's affecting Teamsters. It's affecting the IA. I mean, I've got tons of friends in Atlanta, tons of friends in Los Angeles. At least we have commercials here. We have that. Those other places are mainly television and movies, and they're pretty much shut down. And it's not only the actors and the writers. So it's affecting everybody. We're on strike. I'm an IA member. I'm on strike by proxy, even though we're not on strike. Our contract is up next year. So the question, and I had a question for Michael, is AMPTP even speaking to SAG yet, or are they waiting to finish with the writers?
Yeah, you got it perfectly correct, Earl. They're waiting to finish with the writers. They're going in order, I guess, of the negotiations. And WGA was first on the line. But they haven't spoken to them either. So I think talks are at a standstill. And we've offered us as an organization, we've wanted to come to the table many times. They just haven't returned our calls, or they haven't just been responsive to us. So it's not that we don't want to come to the table. We do want to negotiate with them. They just have not. They've been stagnant. And I also really feel for you. And I do want to note that this was not a decision as an organization that we took lightly to strike. There was like a wide national member strike authorization vote, and we had like I think a 98% return on that, and people said yes. And it wasn't something that we took lightly. And to get back to what Lori was saying too, I mean, and to kind of synthesize what Earl is doing, we're running like a very tenuous tightrope where we want to be efficient in our strike, but also give people a lifeline to work. And that's where the interim agreement comes in, because the interim agreement helps everyone. Earl, like if production signs the interim agreement with us, you're able to work. So we've taken that stance too. We have to we don't work in a vacuum. The industry is a microcosm. It has many, many different facets to it. And so we don't want to be selfish and say, no work for no one, because we know that would just be debilitating for many people, including yourself. So I know what people don't like the interim agreement. So you would appreciate the interim agreement. So we're constantly dealing with that push and pull, and trying to do the best we can to make the biggest amount of people happy. You can never make anyone happy, but I think you have to reach a consensus and plurality, and that's how we've chosen to do it. And again, the interim agreement was also voted on by the board members, and that's how they chose to approach this, because they wanted to give people like Earl and crew members and people who do wardrobe and makeup and the lighting and the cater. They want to give people an opportunity to work just under the right circumstances.
So
Good.
Michael, when's the last time that SAG spoke to AFTRA?
July 13th. So when we went on strike, there have not been any talk. There have been some backdoor conversations, but again, those are not official. Because usually that happens with one party and not the aggregate. So it's, as far as I know, it's July 13th.
Because I really think the closer this gets to the holidays, the more it's going to last till the holidays, and probably
Correct.
won't crank back up till after the holiday, till after the new year. But anyway, I'll let someone
think
else get in.
Even if it was resolved today, I don't think we'd see much production before November. I think October would still be recuperating and saying, okay, now what can we do? What can we not do? That's just my opinion. But yeah, I don't think we'll see that.
Yeah, it's not a light switch, it's a dimmer, so you have to get people ramped up again. It's not just a boom,
Yes.
it's like it's a dimmer, like the sun is rising. So it's gonna take some time to, I think, get back to full speed.
Sharon, you had something you wanted to add.
Yeah, I got some good news, we hope, last night from the negotiating committee, WGA negotiating committee, and it just has one sentence. It says, "Dear members, the WGA and AMPTP are in process of scheduling a time to get back in the room."
Right.
So that's better than nothing.
Baby
Because
step.
Yeah.
nothing is what we've
Even
been,
talking
well,
about
yeah.
time is good news. That's how contentious this is. So.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Larry, I am gonna, if you want to turn your camera on, I can highlight you. Otherwise, just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I don't have a question. My name is Larry Calabretto. Good to see everybody. I'm not a union member, and I do want to talk about IA, but in full disclosure, I've never been a big fan of unions, but I am supporting you guys, both the writers and SAG, for this one very, very, very important reason. And I implore you, do not let the door open even a tiny crack about IA. Or AI, artificial intelligence, AI, because if you do, it's no hold barred. Everybody's going to be out of work. And I will point to a very perfect example. You go to the grocery store, how many cashiers do you see anymore? You go to the airport, how often are you really dealing with people? And AI is going to be the same thing. It's just nothing but putting people out of work. So I am begging you, I implore you not to let the door open even a tiny crack on AI, and I'm supporting you fully for that purpose alone.
Okay,
Thank
good,
you,
Larry.
Larry.
I appreciate that.
May I say something, Larry?
Please.
That's fantastic, and he's really, really right. I mean, WGA completely agrees. And one of the things that we just recently I saw, like last week, I think it was, one of the things that's happening having to do with AI and writing, creating, is that the Copyright Office in Washington, D.C. has said, if you're AI, you cannot copyright anything that you write. You have to be a human to copyright whatever it is that you've created. Now, how the companies are going to handle this if they decide that they want an AI to write a script or something, I don't know how they're going to handle that. But it's not, according to the Copyright Office, it's not, at this point, it's not copyrightable.
Yeah, and Adam, I want to jump back over to you real fast.
Sure.
You talked a little bit about AI at the very beginning, and Sharon has mentioned it from her perspective. But for those that hear it and kind of understand it, what specifically would AI impact from an actor standpoint? Explain that whole process.
I preface this with we're kind of unsure. I mean, we're kind of like everything with AI is very. I believe that something happened along the lines where everyone said, "Oh my God," because they called for being the big wigs, what's Zuckerberg and on of the so like we have to have a meeting, we have to get and not just for our industry. So but we don't really know. But on our end, what they could do is they scan our body, front, back, everything like this, and then they could use that forever for background. They can change, our face, or take Matt Damon's face and put it on my body and make a whole movie with that. And then you think you're watching Matt Damon, and he doesn't get any payment for it, and on and on. And that's extreme to very little. The thing that would probably happen first would be the background, because it's easy to do, and then you give
It's
get
being
$100
done
a day.
now. It's being done now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it used
Well-
to be remember the cardboard things that they did during
Yeah.
COVID? Yeah. So I mean, yeah. I
Well,
don't know.
from a background standpoint, what is the difference? And I understand it, but I want to make sure that the audience understands. What's the difference between what you're describing and going to a visual effects person and saying, just create, 50,000 people in a stadium?
That's done a lot as well, but sometimes around the stars of the two people, the stars of the show, whatever the movie, and having the real interaction with people around them, you're going to get a better performance. You're going to get more of the real interaction, even if it's just somebody walking by and you give them a little nod, rather than just some computer. The difference when you have to act like someone's there and when someone's really there, it's noticeable. Even the great ones. If for 50,000, they're never going to hire 50,000 extras. Not like when they split the Charlton Heston, and all those real extras back in the day. I don't think they'll ever hire a stadium full of extras because they don't need to. But
Right.
But they could AI it if and then have real people.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to note, Pam in the chat had something really interesting. Warner did just sign an artist, like their first AI artist. And I was thinking about that movie Simone, from years back, and I kind of think it's actually reality now. And now it's like they signed an AI artist, and that's going to be what Warner is pushing as a flagship artist. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that turns out. But that's exactly what people are fearing. That you see, the AI artist could have been someone actually signed, like an artist they could actually develop. However, record labels are no longer developing artists because it's too cumbersome and too costly, and so now they're going to develop software. And that software will be very pliable, and it'll wear whatever they want, sing whatever they want, perform wherever they want, and it will just be way easier for them.
And not
They don't
complain.
have to deal and not complain, or they won't. They don't have to feed them. They don't have to give them per diem. They don't have to fly them on a plane. They don't do anything like that. So for companies, it sounds like a dream, but it's a nightmare for people who need to work and make a living.
Right.
Caitlin brought up a really good thing in the chat. Caitlin's put about Joan the Terrible from Black Mirror. If you haven't seen that, Black Mirror is the show. Joan the Terrible, that explains AI to you 100%.
Good.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Sharon, you had something you wanted to add, and then we're going to go to some questions.
I just had one point that everybody here might be interested in. If you don't get the podcast called Strike Talk with Billy Ray and Todd Garner, that is really eye-opening. And we're in week 22 with that thing, and have yourself a look. I'm going to post, if it's okay, John, I'm going to post in the chat box that information about that, and also some other links, various links to WGA strike information.
Please. Thank you. Okay. Samantha, I am going to spotlight you so people can see you, and go ahead and unmute yourself and come on down and ask your question.
There it is. Okay, great. Hi. So I'm a professor at Rice University for our cinematic arts program at the flagship campus, along with my colleague in the chat, Julia Camera, and some of our students that are joining us today. And there's been a lot of very interesting, somewhat disheartening conversations. So my question for the panel is, what would be some advice that you would give like an up and coming film artist, whether they be a performer, writer, technician, of how to advocate for themselves in this uncertain time, like in the workforce?
I'm not 100% clear on the question. So how to advocate? Do you mean how to get work, or how to represent themselves if they're not in the union, or what do you mean?
Yeah, how to represent themselves so that they don't get kind of taken advantage of before new contracts are signed, before they enter the workforce and under union.
I'll take it if you guys don't mind. So obviously, if given the opportunity to do union as much as you can. The non-union, you just have to read and read and read. And if anything sounds fishy, if you see the word perpetuity, first off, run. Just you're not doing it. Scratch it out. Whatever. I believe Michael can answer this, but I believe if you have a question about a project, you can always call and see if it is union or non-union. And if you get a nice rep, you could always call me. I literally, I'm open. So if you're not sure of something, I would love to help you and say, okay, this looks like this looks like this, and I'll check it out to find out. But you stay away from perpetuity. Just, I mean, you just have to know what doesn't look right. If it says, you know, that they're going to pay you $50 for an extra half day, you know, you can't do that. You can't live on that. Follow your gut. I guess that helps.
Yeah, I would tell you, just to piggyback off of Adam, you said
Yeah.
very good points, but I also think you have to know your business. I know people want to be creatives, but I think you also have to account for the business component of your career. And that might not be as sexy or as fun, but you know, you got to really know what the business component is of your business. I'm a lawyer, so I've negotiated a bunch of contracts and a bunch of things. Like in perpetuity is probably one of the biggest cardinal sins that you can make in a contract, and people just kind of sign whatever and it's fine. But once they got you, they got you. You know, it's kind of easier. You know, once you know, you've opened the bottle, the genie's out, you can't put it back in. You know, so I think it's so important for people who are coming into this industry to, if they love it, really. Like I came up and I was always reading, you know, the trades. I'd always read Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline. You know, if you're in the music industry, Donald Passman has a great book called Everything You Need to Know About the Music Industry, because I came from music and I read that and it taught you, it's like the Bible of the music industry. You know, and I'm sure there's a filmmaker equivalent that maybe, you know, you could probably, you know, tell your students about, but you really need to know the business and like the legal ramifications of what you're doing and what the standards are. Like that's what we do as a union. We set the standard. If we don't set the standard for what things are, it's a free for all. And then, you know, you kind of don't regulate what the industry is. And that's kind of what we do. We set the minimums, not the maximum. You know, we set the floor, but the sky's the limit for people. So I think people need to know what the floor is. And that's what we try to do.
Samantha, one of the things that's really, I think, important from a writer's standpoint, because a lot of time filmmakers are writers, and or there could be just writers who are not filmmakers, but understanding the business and learning the craft is really, as you know, the thing. But also understanding, like Michael said, is understanding the business. That is a big deal. That's half of the business. I mean, that's half of what you do. You have to understand and not to get taken advantage of. So education in that area, whether that's taking workshops with, you know, Film Florida or doing Zoom calls like this or whatever, the education is just as important as anything else. And then understanding how to represent yourself. How do you market yourself as an artist? Whether that's an actor or a writer or what do you do? What branding do you need? What do you need to do? And not being shy about doing it, because that's part of the issue, you know, especially writers. Writers are supposed to be the ones who are like typing on their computers, you know, at home, and we hide out. You can't do that. I mean, when I was in LA, I was going to the meetings 5 times a week at the studios. And that's how I got to be able to do what I'm doing. And, I'm not a famous writer or anything, but I do have a few features I've written that have gotten actually made. I've written a lot more than that, but, you know, so the more you write, the more you have chance of getting things made. And also definitely do short films, write short films, make short films. Because now, when I first started, IMDb didn't really list short films as credits. Now they do. And so you can just get a nice long list of credits from short films.
Excellent.
And on that, for actors, like get on set as much as you can, anytime, every place. And when you do book a job that's a union job or whatever, don't sit in your trailer. I mean, unless they tell you you can't come out. But I mean, you fight so hard and audition and work. And then when you get it, you go sit in a trailer. No, you want to be out there meeting people, talking to people, everything that Sharon was saying. That's so important. And, you know, if you're an artist and, you know, you have a part that's really you need to be in that, of course, that's what your trailer's for. But if it's not, and you can have time to socialize, absolutely socialize and network and socialize.
Excellent.
Samantha,
all right,
be
so
careful,
we have
there's a T-Rex behind you.
What's that?
Samantha's T-Rex behind her was so intimidating. I kept
know.
looking at it the whole time. I was like, that's so cool. I love that. That was gonna be, after I'm like, oh my god, it's so scary.
all right, so I want to be mindful of our time. We're about an hour in. We have 2 more questions up top. I still have another question or 2 on a hit. So Don, I'm going to bring you down and go ahead and ask your question. Unmute yourself.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you showing up. And as we all know, I'm sorry. I'm a member of Local 399 in Los Angeles, and also IBEW Local 40. I'm the guy that makes sure the trailers stay nice. I work in transportation.
Thank you.
You know, we continually have Zoom meetings from my locals and emails expressing our solidarity and how these issues, even though they may not be directly the same issues that we're going to face. And by the way, our contracts come up next year in July. They expire. We're going to be negotiating with this very same group, the same AMPTP group. So we are watching closely what happens now, because it will have a direct effect on our negotiations since we're last in the line. But it's very important. You know, we have things to address like autonomous vehicles. That's going to be our battle one day, replacing us. And it's, I mean, it's just like AI. It's replacing people, which is, it's you know, but anyway. But all of our Zoom meetings and all of our emails are showing a historic solidarity that's never been before, because these issues are the biggest ones that will map out from this point forward how we're all going to be doing business and affecting our careers or not having careers. That's why it's so important. So anyway, I just wanted to say some encouraging words and let you all guys know I appreciate you. I hope to work here at home one day. I live in Walton County, but I do spend most of my time in Los Angeles or the West Coast in the Western 13 working. But everyone have a great day. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don. Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Russell, I am going to add you to the spotlight. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'm calling or zooming in from Miami, Florida. I wanted to go back to AI writing being allowed to be registered as intellectual property. And let me just tell you a little bit about my background. Formerly, I was head of presence marketing for the entire United States for Mercedes-Benz USA, which included Hollywood. So it was entertainment marketing and product placement for the motion picture, television, and music industry. After leaving Mercedes-Benz, I started my own TV production company. But I recently read that in Germany and in the UK, the courts are allowing artificial intelligence written products to be registered as intellectual properties. So that's important to note as you negotiate the deal, because you don't want that to bleed into the United States. Thank you.
Doctor, did you say that was Germany and
yes, and the United Kingdom?
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
The courts ruled that they can be registered as intellectual properties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is a really good point. It'll be interesting to watch. So, Michael, I'm not going to put you on the spot with this because you are officially an acting agent of SAG-AFTRA. But Sharon and Adam, question for you. Your opinion, just best guess. How does this end? When does this end? Sharon, you go first.
No. Sorry. It's a conundrum. I mean, this is going to be probably the longest strike we've ever had with WGA. And I do have to agree that it should end before we all, I mean, you know how Hollywood is, and that's where things are happening. Around the beginning of November, everybody leaves and nobody comes back until after Sundance, so that's kind of like nothing gets done. So I hope it all gets resolved before then. And I'm feeling good about the little notice I got that they're starting to talk again. So that's promising. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed.
Adam, how about you? What's your opinion? Best guess.
Best guess before the holidays, and whatever holiday you want to use, you fill it in there. We hope, we pray, but we're going to stay solid for sure.
Now, Michael, I want to ask you an official question now. Like, lost in all of this is the struggles that people are having. Talk a little bit about what SAG-AFTRA is doing to help people in terms of both mental health as well as some of the financial situations.
Yeah, thanks, John. So I printed out this paper, as you can see, but it has QR codes on there. There are links to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation and the Entertainment Community Fund. We've partnered with them too. We're working in tandem with them to provide members some resources that they could use at their disposal. We have more information on that on SAG-AFTRAstrike.org. I'll put that link in the chat as well, because there's certain parameters that we have and certain requirements that you have to meet, but we are offering that to our members in order to help them during this very difficult time.
Excellent, good. Joe, go ahead, Sharon, please, and then Joe, I'm going to go to Joe.
To follow that on that really quickly, WGA also has strike funds for loans for hardships, and good and welfare fund, several things like that. And I put a link in the chat box that goes to, I think it's the FAQ or something like that, or the strike updates. One of those has all the, connections, all the links to those strike funds.
Good. And just another little housekeeping thing, the stuff that's in the chat, obviously, if you're watching the recording, you're not going to get this, but if you're here now, when we finish, before we close out everything in Zoom, I'm going to stay live so people can go back to that chat box and copy anything that's in there. There's a lot of links in there, a lot of good information. So I will keep that up so people can spend some time in the chat if they need that. Okay, Joe, I am going to bring you down. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question or make your comment.
I'm just going to make a really quick comment. I just wanted to say that IATSE stands in solidarity with the WGA and with SAG-AFTRA actors. These issues that we're having right now are pretty much existential to our industry. So we are seeing what's happening. We are grabbing that information, but standing in support with all of you, because what affects you now will affect us in the future. So we're very much prepared to what's happening. We have already, IATSE has already started kind of figuring out how we're gonna come to the next negotiations next year. So we're very much paying attention, but believe that we are in solidarity with you. We're there, it's important, and we support you every step of the way. Thank you, John.
And Joe, while you're here, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I apologize for that. Can you talk briefly about the new IATSE Local 111 that was just announced this week?
Yes, so it's going to be mostly commercial producer. It's going to be PAs, production coordinators, line producers. I believe there's different categories in there, but it's going to be all based on ACP contract. Just got formed. I know they're already doing their meetings to figure out what their members want to bring to the table in negotiations. So I know those talks are happening right now. And as soon as those talks happen and they have a structure and an idea of what they want to do, then I'm pretty sure they will go ahead and jump into negotiations with the ACP. So we'll see how that will work. So, if you follow me or if you follow IATSE online or on Facebook, you will get a little bit updates of what is going to happen with that. But we believe soon enough that we'll be on the table negotiating for their members. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Joe. I'm glad you were able to jump in. Okay. We have, let's see, what do we have? We have Yanni, you have a question. So let me go ahead and add the spotlight. Go ahead and ask your question. Oh, I can't hear you though. Looks like you're unmuted, but I can't hear you.
How about now?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. You're good.
Sorry, I had the headphone in and it was connected to my phone still. So and then it tried to jump on here. My bad. So I have a project that I was given a grant from the 150 Warner Brothers 150 for to develop a TV series. We got the grant in 2022. We made deliverables last November, and they have the first look deal. They haven't picked it up yet. The 150 transitioned out, and all those projects just to the side. So we want to finance it independently, produce it independently, and wanted to know, does that initial 150 grant exclude us from the SAG waiver?
I would say probably yes. Unfortunately, just because we're letting projects see what they're funded by, and if they're funded by an AMPTP signatory, then they are not approved for the interim agreement.
Okay, so even if it was a grant from but not like, it wasn't like full development, they were full project funding, it was just a development grant.
I mean, that's an interesting one. If you go to SAG-AFTRA.org, there is a link that you could actually email the actual department that's handling the vetting, and they'll be able to probably give you a better answer. I'm just giving you a general what I think would probably at first glance. If there are some exceptions, they'll let you know. It's just from what they've been telling us is that if it has the fingerprints of the AMPTP on it, then it's not giving the green light.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that, and I appreciate that. We kind of want to steer clear of it anyway. So
Right. Yeah, no. I think the gold standard is to be independently financed, but sometimes that's not realistic. Yeah.
That, but I mean, there are other fingerprints besides just financial ones that really don't, push projects in the right direction, so to speak.
Right.
So
thanks for the question, Yanni. I'm gonna bring down. We got one last guest question. Hulda, is that I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right, but go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. If you turn on your camera, I can.
Hi, yes, you said it right, John. Thank you very much. My question for sure will be for everyone on board for the Film Commission for Florida. I have two questions. One, myself, I'm a 24-year-old filmmaker here in Florida. I wanted to know that with the whole strike that is going on, considering that there's a lot of things that we cannot work on, and being the fact that we are currently in a generation where content creation is so important. We see it on TikTok, on Instagram with the reels, all those aspects of things. I wanted to know that even after the strike comes to an agreement, which we're all hoping, my main thing is what will be done for the filmmakers here in Florida to ensure that my generation, that we don't have to travel to Georgia or LA or Chicago, because the film industry here in South Florida does not compare to the industry out there in LA and Georgia. And secondly, will there be a platform such as a built-in studio within Florida to allow those who would love to stay in Florida to continue working, to ensure that there is a platform for them instead of us leaving Florida to go elsewhere for jobs, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it certainly isn't from a lack of effort on anybody's part, whether it's the local film commissions or our organization. I think, yeah, it's an uphill battle. There's no doubt about it. Adam alluded to it at the very beginning, and it's maybe the good way to circle back at the very end a little bit. It's a struggle. I know there are a number of local incentives that are trying to do the best that they can throughout the state, specifically in South Florida. There's some really good ones in that area, as well as the Bay Area, Tampa and St. Pete. It's as far as studios that are available. I know stuff is being built in Broward County. There are some other studios that are down in Miami as well. There's no silver bullet. Look, if I had an easy answer for those questions, I promise I'd be sharing. I'd be sharing it immediately. But it's not from a lack of effort. It all comes back to elections have consequences, and the people that are in office in Tallahassee right now don't have the same support for our industry that some of those other states have. And so, we continue to work with them as best as we can. The challenging part is a vast majority of them do support what we're trying to accomplish, but the ones that don't happen to be in power right now, specifically in the Florida House. And so we're going to continue to work and continue to educate, and we would encourage people to reach out to me directly, and ask what you can do in your local area, and I can give you names and email addresses to reach out to your local legislators and try and communicate the importance of their support. Sharon, you actually raised your hand in the middle of that. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, this is one of those heartbreaking things. We this last big project that is premiering at the Newport Beach Film Festival, and then it'll go in. I'm thinking it's going straight to streaming, but who knows? I don't know. We have a distributor, so that's nice. But this Man in the White Van, it was based on a true life story that took place in Brooksville, Florida, in 1974. I think it's okay to say that now. But we weren't able to shoot it in Florida. We had to go to Shreveport. I mean, and it had everything to do with, and the director, Warren Skills, my co-writer, he lives here in Jacksonville too. I'm in Jacksonville, and we wanted to shoot it in Florida without a doubt. And we couldn't do it because there are no incentives. And that had, all the producers went, well, duh. So we went to Shreveport. We did shoot a couple of pickups and stuff, I think, in Sarasota. But it's heartbreaking when that's the case. And I've got two more, lower budget well, reasonably, we're still on the MBA. And those are going to be shot in one's in Georgia, the other one's in Baja, Mexico, or California. So
Yep. All right, Sandy, I'm going to give you the opportunity. One last comment. So I'm going to add your spotlight. You can say your piece and then we will wrap things up here.
Thank you, John. I actually just wanted to say to everyone, because, you know, all of you are ambassadors, you know, for this industry. You get calls for work, right? I urge you all to actually look at what, you know, what the local film commissions have, so you are knowledgeable about them, because, you know, I'm not going to plug for it, but, you know, we have the largest incentive in the state, which was actually, I want to say premiered 2 weeks before the strike. So no one knows about it, but I'm saying that, you know, it is important because you guys are our first line of defense. And if you know who has what in the state, you can be ambassadors and help us help you help yourselves. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining, by the way.
So you're a film commissioner?
I am. Yes, I am the Broward County Film Commissioner and the president of Film Florida. Both.
Right. Sorry, I didn't. I knew everybody knew you except me.
Nice to meet you, Sharon.
Andy. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and as Sandy mentioned, you know, there are, look, nobody's going to claim that our local incentives are going to compete with, you know, some of the other statewide incentives, but they're there and they're better than nothing, and we need to take advantage of them when we can. There's a page on our website that has the local incentives, so everybody should go and educate themselves about those. But that's going to wrap up another edition of Film Florida Friday. Our first one after our break was quite a doozy. Thanks to Michael, Adam, and Sharon for being with us, and thank you all for joining us today. I want to thank Katie Collins, our assistant, for helping me wrangle and prepare for these things every month. We'll be back next month. We're going to do a special edition in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month next month. Be on the lookout for that in email blast and social media pages. I want to thank all of our Film Florida members for their continued support. If you're not a member of Film Florida, we hope you'll join. Go to filmflorida.org for more information about that. We are funded entirely by our members, so our ability to do all of these type of things is dependent upon the support we get from there. We also mentioned our donation page. Please consider $20.23 for our 2023 fundraising campaign. You can find that link in the chat box and on our website. Keep up with everything we're doing on social media. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and now Threads as well. And make sure you check out the Film Florida podcast. We're available on most major outlets. Season 6 drops this Monday, September 18th. So thanks for being here today, everybody. Have a great day. And as I mentioned, I will keep that chat box open for anybody that wants to continue. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you,
Solidarity.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Sharon. Thanks, Adam.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Thanks, Mike.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending.